What's up guys, back for another Honkai Star Rail video, and this video was originally going to be budget teams. Now, unfortunately, after testing teams for a while, I just really couldn't make anything work that didn't include Ruan Mei or Robin, which are two characters that people have said multiple times in the comments like, oh, can you do one without Ruan Mei? Can you do one without Robin? Oh, you're using Ruan Mei again. And I understand, right? That not everybody is going to have every character or even some of the best characters, but unfortunately, I just couldn't make it work, bro. It's not with what I have, not with the relics I have, not with using too many premium characters. I'm sure if I sat here for like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end, I could probably find another team that would work. But I was leaning too far into like, oh, E2 Acheron, that's not relatable. I can't really use Acheron. Oh, this team doesn't quite get the score done. This team, I just don't have the relics to make this team work, and it was just a lot of hoops I had to jump through, right? So unfortunately, that's just not happening, right? But as I was thinking up teams, there was a lot of times where I was like, okay, this team might work, but then it came back to these two characters where, oh, this team would be really good if I could use Ruan Mei, or this team would be really good if I could use Robin, or hey, this team might work if I could use Robin, or hey, this team might work if I could use Ruan Mei. And it got me thinking, right? Now, I feel like we've known this for a while that unfortunately in Sorrow, if you don't manage your account's resources correctly or in a somewhat good way, you could screw yourself over and not be able to beat the end game. And that also works with what you are summoning on. If you only summon for your faves and your faves are like, oh, I love Firefly, I love Acheron, I love okay, maybe that's not those two because they have actually pretty good free to play options. Oh, I love Kafka, I love Jingyun, I love Ratio, I love Don Hang, and your team is starting to look a little bit like, let's say like this, right? Like we can't put any more characters. All right, there you go. Your team is starting to look like something like this, right? None of these characters have synergy. It's gonna be rough. It's like, all right, well, if you had like Sparkle or Robin or like a Sustain, then you'd be pretty good. But a lot of people who summon for their faves are gonna run into that issue unless you do a little bit of account management and grab some supports or sustains. But I feel like everybody knows that. At least you should know that by now. And there's two characters that kind of stand out from the crowd because there's a lot of options, especially for DPSs. There's a lot of old DPSs you can use, like Jinglu and Don Hang have not completely fallen off, but they're definitely not the best of the best anymore. Obviously, they still work totally fine. Old DPSs such as, even 4 stars like QQ could probably still work if you put enough support into her. Clara can still work. Ratio still works. Actually, still one of the best ones. Jing Young can still work. Even the old DPSs can still work, and there's options. Now with sustain, same thing. There's going to be better sustains than others, like Adventuring, Fushuan, and Huohuo are going to be pretty good because they offer something more than just sustain. But hell, you can get away with running like Luocha or hell even like Bailu or Lynx, right? You still get away with it. There's options. Then we go around to like sub DPSs or second DPS on your team, and it's like the same thing as the first one, right? But then we get around to supports, right? And I'm not saying there isn't good supports. Like March and Harmony MC have been excellent additions to the support roster, but I feel like, at least personally, when I try to make new teams or try new teams out, the teams that work the best most of the time are not DPSs with budget rest of the team. It's really good supports with a budget rest of the team, right? So if you have a good support and then the rest of the team is like, an okay DPS, okay sustain, it works out most of the time, right? Most of the budget videos are old DPS, like insert Himiko, right? Free character, sustain that's easy to get or just generic, and then you have top tier sustain or top tier support, sorry, Ruan Mei. Team works out, right? Now, if I were to get rid of Ruan Mei and I were to run, let's say, like Firefly Asta, Firefly has enough juice to probably just make this work, and you'd probably be fine, right? But if you were to run something like Himiko, Asta, Harmony MC, Gallagher, it might be a bit rough. You might not be able to get as high of a score, right? Now, one of the teams I did try out was actually this team right here, and unfortunately, I couldn't make it work. I was getting a little close to the 30k that I wanted, but it wasn't enough, right? Unfortunately, as good as these two are for free characters, they didn't have the utility Run May has. And that loops around to the premise of this video is the chokehold that these two characters have on the game is crazy. Follow-up attack is just being crammed down our throats, and the peak pinnacle of follow-up attack support is Robin, right? You could probably use Bronya for Fei Zhao. It's not going to be as good as Robin. You could probably use Sparkle with Fei Zhao. Not going to be as good as Robin. You could probably use Ting Yun to an extent, right? Obviously, you're not ulting Fei Zhao, you're ulting someone else. And it could work, right? Not as good as Robin. You could run Pela, not as good as Robin. You get what I mean, right? Follow-up is a huge chunk of the game, and Robin's even the best in slot for characters such as Acheron even, right? And then you have the other side of the spectrum, which is you have the crit rate, crit damage DPSs on one side, and you have the more niche characters on the right. Dot falls into being able to use both Robin and Ruin Mei, and Break uses Ruin Mei. So if you have Ruin Mei and Robin on your account, you have all your bases covered. You have Dot, you have follow-up, you have generic hyper carry, you have the dual like DPS setup, you have break, you're good to go. These characters are so essential for accounts. I feel like you're just doing yourself a disservice if you don't have them, which is unfortunate. I'm not saying the game should be like that, but trying to fill out the team without having these two is rough, right? I'm not saying they're a must on every team. I just want to get that clear. But if you're running the follow-up attack team, right, and you have, let's say this is your team right here, boop, 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 and then for your support, it's like, oh, well, I guess I have to run Ting Yan. You can make it work, but it just doesn't have as much synergy as Robin does. You could probably run Bronya as well. But there's a reason that people are saying, hey, if you're running follow-up team, you want to make sure you get Robin before you even get the DPS, right? Even I would admit, if you are very close, if you went into last banner and this was your team for follow-up right here, and it's like, oh, should I get Fei Zhao or should I get Robin? 100% of the time it was Robin. Same thing with the break team. If people are like, okay, Firefly and Ruin Mei came out at the same time, which one should I get? It was always get Ruin Mei before you get Firefly. There's a reason for that. It's because their supports are so good and so needed for the teams. You can run them, but you aren't going to get as much power from them if you don't, which is a bit rough, and it's a cold truth that people just got to know, right? Now, obviously, we are definitely due for another top tier support, probably after Rappa is when they're going to drop it. So maybe hold out on trying to grab them if Ruin Mei ends up rerunning, or Robin probably won't rerun because she just came back, right? But hold out on it and probably wait for the next top tier insane support. But it's kind of just the law of the land. If you don't have one of the better supports in the game, it's just going to be a bit rough, right? And that's just the video I wanted to make today. Unfortunately, I couldn't make the budget team work. I'm going to try a few more things and see if I can't make a different team from the last video. But not including these two characters it's really rough. It's really rough, right? Now, obviously, since this was more so a discussion slash rant video, I want your guys' opinions in the comments. Let me know if you think Ruin Mei and Robin are like the end all be all. You have to have them. Let me know if you don't have them at all and you do just fine. Do you guys run them with just the premium characters in general, or do you run them with more of like the free-to-play-ish 4 stars or the standard banner characters? Do you think that these characters are too OP, right? Because an argument can be had that if we were to make a DPS so strong that they could work with worse supports, that it would make too much of a gap in the game, which is very reasonable because if you compare Arlen to Acheron, sorry Arlen, I don't think, having Robin, Sparkle, Bronya all boosting Arlen, I don't think he's going to compete with Acheron even if she's using someone like Pela or Gwenivant, right? It's just too much of a power gap. And if we have a support or a DPS that is so strong that you could run like Yukong with them and they're clearing someone's DPS with Robin, that'd be a bit of a power creep. I don't think we're quite ready for that. I think they kind of dug themselves into a hole with how strong the supports are in this game compared to the other characters. Because Aventurine, I believe, is the best tank, but Fushuan is comparable. Woho is comparable. Linkshia is comparable, right? Now, when you go to DPS, we're like, oh, is Fei Zhao comparable to like Zele? No. Is Fei Zhao comparable to Jinglu? No. Is she comparable to Ratio? No. Is she comparable to Donheng? No. And the same thing can't be said about the sustains. You know, Fushuan came out. I think what Fushuan came out before Donheng, right? Or am I tripping? I think she came out after. Someone remind me in the comments. Can't remember, but it was around the time of Donheng, right? But then when you compare Acheron and Aventurine, it's like, oh, you know, people still like Fushuan and still thought Fushuan is better. But if you compare Acheron to Donheng, it'd be like, yeah, Acheron clears him. And it's like, it's crazy. But enough of that. Like I said, let me know if you think these two are a must-have. You need them to play the game. Let me know if you think they're overrated, all that good stuff. And of course, I will catch y'all in the next Honkai Star Rail video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and yeah, I'll catch y'all next one.